Hello everyone, my name is MansaMusa and welcome back to my channel, and today we're back with another video in Advanced Wars by Web. And I know it's been a little bit, guys, since I last posted, and I do apologize for that. We do have some more exciting content coming up soon, more replay analysis videos, more episodes of the Comm Tower, all that kind of stuff. But as the year's been winding down here, I have taken a little bit of a break, but I've come back today with a super excited video, a video that I have spent a little bit of time on now, and a video that I'm going to be super proud of. And guys, today I'm going to be busting out the teacher glasses, because I am going to be telling you guys today the 5 tactics that separate the best Advanced Wars by Web players from everybody else. The best from the rest, whatever the hell I'm calling this video, I don't even know yet. But in general, it's just going to be 5 tactics that are going to help you guys win a lot more of your games. And before we actually get into the video, I'm actually going to do something I haven't really done yet on this channel, and that's going to be to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I haven't really done this a lot, but I am trying to hit 200 subs, hopefully by the end of the year, if not at some point in January of next year, depending on how fast I actually get out this video. It is probably going to take a while to edit. But yeah, if you guys haven't yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so. I really don't post that many videos. I'm not going to be a guy that spams your sub box, I swear. But when I do post videos, I try to put out the best content possible. Like today's video, where I've spent a lot of time going into some of the most advanced tactics that I've learned so far as kind of like a 1300 rated player on Advanced Wars by Web. Before we get into it though, just a little glasses off to those of you who are already subscribed. Thank you very much. And also because these are incredibly uncomfortable, I don't want to wear these the entire time. But yeah, before we get right into it, thank you guys just overall so much for watching these videos this past year. My channel is relatively new, so I'm very happy about how much it actually has grown in the past year to year and a half. So thank you to all of you who've been checking out the videos. Even if you haven't been subscribed, I always appreciate anyone who checks out the vids. With all that being said, let's hop right into it. 5 tactics that separate the best from the rest. Tactic 1, wasting units' time. Tactic number 1 is wasting units' time. And we have an example today between a game between myself and Profeta7. He is around a 1500 rated player, and this is actually taking place in the Empire Cup. It's a very exciting on-site tournament between a bunch of creators and developers of the Advanced Wars by website. And this is our round 1 game on the map Loveless Birds, I believe. It's obviously a mixed-based map, as you can see. And my main idea, the main concept with wasting unit time is to make sure that your opponent's units, especially your opponent's expensive units, are doing things that they don't want to be doing. What do I mean by don't want to be doing? Like, what I mean by that is you don't want your opponent's neo tanks and medium tanks or bombers or any of these big typed up units to get a bunch of high value engagements, right? Attacking your own tanks, helping with HQ flips, base flips, very important city flips. Any of these tactics, you really want them to be kind of out of the play as much as possible, spending time on, let's say, low HP infantry or low HP tanks, or trying to bust through walls, or just really doing anything else that's very annoying grunt work that I would rather have other less expensive units doing. So to talk about this example here in this game, let's take a look at this bottom 4th quadrant here of the map. As you can see, I'm applying a lot of pressure with Profeta here, trying to get to this city flip, and this city flip on the next few turns, and potentially even threaten the base flip with my neo tank, medium tank, and bunch of infantry and smaller tanks in the area. And we can see that Profeta has taken a very aggressive defensive stance to this by building 2 neo tanks and a medium tank, accounting for roughly 60,000 funds of his total army of around 180,000. So basically a third of his entire army value is down here in this corner right now. So what am I going to do here with my units to try to make sure that these 3 units, the neo tank, and the medium tank, are going to have as least of impactful engagements as possible? How do I keep them out of the play? Well, the first question I have to ask is, what do I actually want to do in this position? And the answer here is, I can't really threaten the base flip with this much value here. It's pretty much going to be impossible, especially without these artilleries not in the play yet. So what I really want to do is front shift these units away, potentially help defend this area, which is under a pretty heavy threat, you can see here by Profeta, or maybe even go for the HQ cap, which is ultimately going to be the goal of this map. Almost entirely all the bomb bolt mirrors that I've seen on this map end with an HQ flip, so that's probably going to be a long-term goal here. But essentially, I don't want to be really messing with this area of the map anymore, this bottom left quadrant that we were talking about. But I still too want to make sure that these 3 units here are not coming in and chasing my units and causing a lot of problems. So how am I going to waste their time? And the answer here is by blocking them off and distracting them with city flips. So we can see here on this next couple turns, if I can get the game to load. There it is. Okay, I don't know, it's taking so long. But we can see here, I'm going to be slowly front shifting my army away. So we see these tanks coming over here to the right. The Neo tank is front shifting away. It's my big powerful unit that was in this attack. This medium tank is still going to be in the area to provide some defensive coverage. but I am going to be blocking off a lot of important choke points. So this 7 HP infantry is very annoying. It stops this medium tank from coming in. Yes, this medium tank can come in and free it, and it can start to push out, but then it's going to be in range of this medium tank still, and this neo tank is still within somewhat range that it can come back. And importantly, this 3 HP infantry and this 5 HP infantry are also blocking off this neo tank and making it also very annoying to get out here. Importantly, you can't fully get out here and attack the medium tank because this neo tank can attack the infantry, this medium tank can attack the tank, but then this neo tank over here in the city is not in range of anything, so these 3 units cannot get out this way. If they want to get out, they're going to have to go through the 7 HP infantry, and they're still not going to get that far. Additionally, I'm putting more infantry in the way to potentially threaten this city flip, and even this city flip on these next couple turns as well. So we see here on day 17, he's still trying to get out with these units. We see a mech build to help defend this city. This neo tank still hasn't progressed that far. This medium tank killed the 7 MP infantry, and now this neo tank is really the furthest of those big 3 units they were talking about that has progressed outwards, but still really not that far, still pretty close to the one base where it started. We can see on my turn, I put even more of my army away from this bottom left quadrant. I really don't care about this quadrant anymore. We can see I'm putting much more pressure here up on the north, getting an Ex Machina attack, very high value Ex Machina attack up here in the northeast, and then putting my own units, the artillery, 2 neo tanks and a medium tank to really threaten and attack these units and potentially get the HQ as well. And then here down the south, I'm being as annoying as possible. I'm sacrificing this medium tank to first get my Ex Machina. That was an important reason why we saw this engagement, and then blocking it in with this 1 HP infantry as well. And then these 2 infantry are hella annoying for both the Neo and medium tank in the area. This medium tank, because of the 1 HP infantry, is such an annoying little guy here. This is the main idea of wasting units' time, is preventing the medium tank to actually stop the flip here of the city. So what he's going to have to do is commit both the medium tank and the Neo tank to these 2 infantry to stop the flip, which he does in fact do, but it's just another turn, another day where these 3 units, a neo tank, a medium tank, are still in this quadrant, still really haven't moved anywhere, still really haven't done anything. And like I said, guys, that was like around 1/3 of his army value that I've essentially put off in this corner here and said they're worthless, they're not doing anything, right? Yes, they're getting some engagements here, they're getting some hits, whatever, and they're stopping some flips, but at the end of the day, I don't care. It's allowed my units to get much better positioning up here in the north, where I was actually losing at the time, to be a much more winning position. And again, I just really don't care about this bottom third of the quadrant anymore. I'm not going for a base flip. It really has no value for me. We progress here, and we can see I'm now getting a much more powerful attack here up in the north like we were talking about, and this game continues on. I will actually be doing a review of this game once it's complete. It's actually still a live game currently going on, so I don't want to talk too much about my strategy or whatnot, although I think I'm kind of in a losing position. But again, we'll talk about it when the game finally finishes. But in just this 3-day span here, from roughly around day 15 to day 18, we can see I have absolutely nullified these 2 Neo tanks and these medium tanks just through very annoying unit positioning and threatening city flips, and it's capped off here actually by one final annoying little diagonal line of units. This Neo tank again is gonna have to waste another turn killing off this medium tank to get through, and then these Neo tank and medium tank have their movement kind of slightly stifled by these 1 and 3 HP infantry in the area. This infantry can actually come out and clear this 3 HP infantry, but it actually wants to come here and help with interrupting this flip on the city, which I'm also threatening in the area, so it's probably not going to actually do that. It's probably going to have to waste another 2 turns here with the Neo tank and the medium tank, clearing off these infantry and spending another turn here again in the bottom left quadrant that I ultimately don't care about. So yeah, that's tip number 1, wasting units' time. You can see here in a position that was kind of not looking good for me, that was looking a little bit lost. Profeta put a major defense on his area with 2 Neo tanks and a medium tank trying to defend a part of the map, and then through my front shifting movements, I was able to get a much better attack up here in the north while also making sure that those units were not able to come into the fight. So that's tip number 1, wasting units' time. Moving on to tip number 2. Tactic 2, sacking for surprise powers. Going on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is a very common tip that you will see a lot of players actually utilize in their games. It's not going to be something that's absolutely revolutionary or really groundbreaking, but it is a very important tip and something that I think definitely separates very high-level players from your more 1,000 and below level players. And that is sacking units for power. This is a great example. Like, this one is a match that was previously on my channel, so go check it out up here if you've missed it. But this was myself and Hamida's 2v2 challenge game against Jaytakwin that we ultimately ended up winning. And this is a very crucial turn for me here on day 15. We noticed that I'm in a very bad position. Both me and Hamida are in a very bad position here. I'm only on 17k compared to both Jaytakwin's 19 and 17k, so they're absolutely crushing us already on income. And we can see that I actually have 4 cities that are threatened to be flipped on this turn. And a lot of pressure being put onto my position, my 2 base here up in the north, and eventually my HQ as well, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Eagle battlecopters coming into the position. This is not looking good at all. So I'm going to have to find a way out of that, and really the only way to save these cities, I'm not going to be able to interrupt them, I kind of need a turtle and defend here, is to get the Winter Fury. But we can still see that I am roughly 20,000 away from the Winter Fury, so it's not particularly close, and I don't have a lot of very punchy units that can help me give me this charge, right? This anti-air has no battlecopters that can attack. Notably, this solar battlecopter is Himida's battlecopter. He's on my team, so that is not a target here for me to go for. Same with this anti-air and this anti-air as well. So I can't really get any free charge by getting a battlecopter kill. The only real free hit I can get here is clearing off this infantry and then attacking with this medium tank onto the tank. That's a little bit of charge I can get here, but other than that, I'm gonna have to take some bad engagements. I'm gonna have to sack some units here if I want to get the charge and ultimately get Winter Fury here, which would be a huge decisive move here to interrupt all 4 of those caps and make sure that these 8 battlecopters that we had in the area are gonna be heavily weakened, because obviously battlecopters movement in snow goes down from 6 to 3. So that's what we're ultimately gonna end up seeing here. That's what I go for. Get the hit on the tank there, get some more charge here with a few infantry engagements, and then fully sack this tank into a max medium tank with, I think, 3 towers or 2 towers at this point, a ridiculous amount of firepower. You can see it only does 1 damage and then gets fully killed on the return fire. So that's, you know, just max things that you're going up against. But in this case, where that would be normally an absolutely terrible engagement, it's actually exactly what I want. We can see here that I'm pretty much at charge. Need to sacrifice 1 more tank, and then a few more infantry engagements, and we can see that I am going to in fact get Winter Fury here, and it absolutely saves the game in this position, and make sure that these 4 flips are not going to go through, at least for a few more turns. This one probably is not going to go through at all now. I have more units in the area. This one will probably go through still within a few days. These 2 are going to be much more dubious about going through. So really it's stopped what a scenario where there was 4 guaranteed flips that were going to go through to a scenario where you have 1, maybe 1.5 flips that are going to go through. And then again, all of these battlecopters are absolutely neutered for a few turns, which is going to allow both my anti-airs, Himida's battlecopters, and my own battlecopters and medium tanks to come up and help to defend this position. So a massively important move here. This ultimately ended up winning us the game. We see here, we'll just go through on these next couple turns, but Himida also gets in position here, and then Mouth of Jitapun here accidentally builds a lander, leads him to resigning and us ultimately winning this game. And we talked about this with Jay Talkwin in our Com Tower interview that we did with him, so again, check that one up out here, another shameless plug for the channel. But yeah, in that video he talked about how he definitely made a mistake with that medium tank positioning here on this plane. He didn't realize that I could sacrifice as much into that medium tank as I could, and that ultimately allowed me to get the Winter Fury and ultimately win the game. So look out for that in your games. Look out for tactical sacrifices that can get you very important, very crucial powers, especially in mirror matchups. Like you have your Olaf mirrors, your Von Bolt mirrors, your Eagle mirrors, where getting that first power is decisively important. Look for a good unit of sacrifices in those games to make sure that you're getting your power first, and that by getting your power first, you're also going to be getting your second power first. That's something that's also very important that people don't really think about a lot in their games, and that will absolutely lead you to winning more games. Now, there is an important caveat with this tip that I do want to say, which is do not throw away your entire army, sacrificing the entire farm just to get a power. What I like to do in my games is look at 2 different turns when I'm close to my power. One where I'm sacking units to get the power, and one where I don't. You know, I save I wait my units another turn, knowing that I'll get the power the next turn. And I really just look at which boards I like better, which positioning I like better, and ultimately go with whichever one. But it's very important to realize that just because you get your power, and just because you can maybe get a few picks off here or there, if you're sacrificing, 3 tanks, 2 battlecopters, a Neo tank, whatever it is, sometimes that's not going to be worth it, especially because if your opponent is also going to get their power pretty much directly after that, they might have a much better counterattack than you could possibly imagine if your power that you're sacking for is not ultimately decisive. So if you don't absolutely need it, like in this case where I had 4 cities that were going to get flipped if I didn't get it, or if you don't have an absolutely decisive advantage like getting a base flip, an HQ flip obviously, or destroying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of unit value, it's probably not best to go for sacrifices in those cases. But again, always should be something that you're looking out for on your radar, and in this particular case, ultimately won us the game. Tactic 3, using off-meta powers. Tip number 3, tactic number 3 to help you win more of your games is going to be using surprising powers. These are kind of your off-meta powers that people really don't consider to be good in the vast majority of cases, to get surprising attacks on your opponents and get much larger positional advantages. So what are the powers that I'm really talking about in this case? Mainly very underrated powers like Blizzard for Olaf, Double Time for Sammy, Sidewinder for Adder, High Society for Kindle, Super Snipe for Grit. Basically any of these powers, which are considered by most to be pretty much borderline on either unusable or very much not strong for your particular commanding officer. And what happens is when people view these powers as, not usable or very bad or just not something that you should go for, a lot of times they will have positioning of their units or positioning of their attack that is not ready for these powers because they're not expecting you to power. And then obviously this is a Sammy matchup on the map Mercy that we had during the APC2 qualifiers between Arya Fireheart and Sonya the Superior. Arya Fireheart was not looking for Sonya to pop Double Time here. He was expecting a longer-term victory march, especially on a map like this, which is so prudent for that victory march. You're going to get a bunch of city flips. You're going to probably get a base flip on this weak central base, and ultimately maybe the HQ as well. That's kind of the main route this map goes up to, either an attack and flip of this base or an attack on the HQ. But we can see here that Sonya the Superior is going to use that focus on the victory march to use a devastating double time to not only get the same idea of the victory march getting the central base, but doing so in a way that also protects a lot of the unit value and unit count that Sonya the Superior has in this position. So we see it here on day 9 in the position. Sonya the Superior brings in his battlecopter to attack the mech on the base, pops the double time, brings in another battlecopter to get hit on the infantry here, brings in this infantry, which now has the reach with double time, that extra +1 movement to infantry and mech units to kill the mech on the base. And now this infantry is going to get a uncontested base flip here on the central base, which is ultimately going to lead to Sonya Superior winning the game. And the last very important thing about this double time, which is also just another brutal twist of the dagger here for Arya Fireheart, is we clear off this infantry here on the mountain, which allows this infantry to come in and block the battlecopter from having any attack on, block the anti-air from having any attack on the battlecopter as well, making this an even more winning position than it already was, guaranteeing the base flip and guaranteeing that these cities are going to fall very soon for Arya Fireheart. So again, this is something that Arya Fireheart just obviously did not see, was not expecting the double time, was probably focused too much on the victory march, and it's a good example of how you can use lesser or off-meta powers to gain a large tactical advantages in your games. Additionally, again, this is another match I did actually cover on my channel. Check that one out up here as well if you want to see more context of this game at large. Tactic 4, using pivot points. Moving on to tactic number 4, we have using pivot points to win key positioning areas but not over-committing. Well, what do I mean by this? This is actually kind of an advanced topic, something that's a little bit more in the weeds than some of those other previous tips, a little bit not as straightforward, if you will. But it is something that D just talked about recently in one of his videos that I also wanted to parrot because I think it's a very strong tactic, and one that actually allowed J-Taquin in this matchup. This one was obviously the match that I talked about earlier, myself and Himita's challenge against J-Taquin. It allowed J-Taquin to have that much stronger lead against us in the first place. We talked about earlier on in the video how I was in a very tough position, a bunch of my properties being flipped, my entire 2 base pretty much falling under attack. How did we even get to that position in the first place? How are the J-Taquins absolutely smoking us in that state? And the answer here is pivot points, right? Good front shifting lanes that allow the hand of J-Taquin here to bring these medium tanks all the way over here, get the contested properties in the area, and then front shift them up to attack my central base. So let's see how we did it. The hand of J-Taquin starts here by moving out his medium tanks over to the right here. This was kind of the main threat or idea that me and Himita were worried about. We were worried about this one base falling. We have multiple battlecopters here coming in from Lash right now, but it's going to be Eagle for J-Taquin attacking this medium base, this one base here by Himita, and then obviously these max medium tanks coming in. This double threat will allow this single base to fall here relatively easily if we're not defending it heavily with our own battlecopters and medium tanks in the area. But Hand of J-Taquin utilizes our overinvestment into this area to defend kind of our position, to then front shift these units away. So we see these medium tanks all coming to the north now, going up this pivot point lane. This is the main intersection idea where Mouth of J-Taquin and Hand of J-Taquin's units can both gather up and then threaten my cities in the area and then pressure my one base as well. he really is demonstrating that he didn't really care about this attack too much at all. Kind of the similar idea that I had in the Prophetic game, where we said this quadrant of the map was really important to start with, but I don't want to go too far into it. I don't want to overinvest, and I'm going to now front shift to an area that I was previously losing in, that I want to be now winning in, and put on a bunch of pressure. So that was again my idea in that Empire Cup game against Profeta that I will be covering at some point on my channel. Jay Talkman uses that same idea here to really punish me for getting a little too over defensive in the bottom right here and a little too aggressive up here in the north. So we see that played out. We see the medium tanks come in, and like we were talking about before, that sacking turn, it led to a position where my 2 bases under complete threat. We see 8 battlecopters coming in here from the mouth of Jay Talkman and 4 city flips. This is the turn right before I ultimately got the Winter Fury, so this medium tank was actually a little bit mispositioned. It allowed me to get the Winter Fury and win the game. If this tank was backed up a little bit further, there was no way I was getting the Winter Fury. The Jay Talkmans would have absolutely won this game. But we can see here that the main idea did actually follow through, right? He had this pressure in the area. It allowed him to get both of these cities, which we haven't recaptured yet, even with his medium tanks leaving this area. It means he had very strong pressure. He was able to accomplish what he wanted. I think he also wanted to get this comm tower as well. We were able to defend that one a little bit better. But then he did ultimately get what he wanted. He's starting these city flips here in the contested pivot point area, and he's putting on a lot of pressure onto my 2 base here up in the north. So yeah, very important tip, very crucial idea. Like DJ was talking about in his video, you want to put on a lot of pressure in an area, make your opponent overinvest, win contested properties and cities in that area, like the Jay Talkman did here, the hand of Jay Talkman did here, winning these 2 properties. Again, one of the comm tower didn't get it, but was close. He had turns where he was capturing it. And then pivot north to an area that you control the movement here. Obviously, the hand and the mouth of Jay Talkman, their units are combining here to put on a lot of pressure onto my 1 base, and then use that pressure to win somewhere else on the map. And that pressure did again allow him to start these 4 city flips. And again, if he did not put this medium tank here, if he had retreated it a little bit further, there was no way I was getting Winter Fury this turn. Those cities would have fallen, and then me and he would have lost the game shortly after. So again, that was tip number 4, using pivot points to win positions, but not overcommitting in the position. Tactic 5, making builds that require answers. Finally, we move on to tip number 5, guys, and that is going to be a tip that sounds pretty basic, but it is very, very important to think about in all your games, and that is building units that require answers. And that seems like a little bit of a cheap out answer, or kind of a cheap out tip, where it's like, great, MansaMusa, what do you mean by that? And to kind of reply to that, well, I'm not going to just give you one example of what I mean. I'm actually going to give you 3 examples of what I mean. 3 for the show. MansaMusa, Professor MansaMusa, coming out again with the glasses, putting them back on for this final tip. What do I mean by building units that your opponent has to have answers to? Well, it really comes in with kind of multiple ideas, and we're going to give examples from all of them. But the main core concept here is either building triangle units on a weak single base or 1 base that your opponent's not going to be able to respond to. We're going to get into that here with Torjid versus Days of Plague on Mercy again. Building very expensive tech ups that your opponent either doesn't have the money or resources to handle with, or building surprising units in the opening like recons on standard maps that put too much pressure on your opponent in certain areas in the map and cause them to make poor decisions or have to deal with very annoying outcomes. Starting with the first of these examples, which is building triangle units that your opponent cannot deal with on the weak 1 base. So like we were talking about, in a standard matchup, you might have a 2 base, 1 base side, and you would apply this idea on the 1 base. In this mixed base map, it's a 3 base mixed map, Misery, which again was featured in the APC tournament. Great tournament. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that one out on Humita's channel. But in this map, we have a very weak central 1 base here. 4 Days of Plague, and Torjid is going to attack it by throwing out multiple of the triangle units, that's battlecopters, tanks, and anti-airs, towards this 1 base to make sure that whatever Plague builds here, it's not going to be enough. He's not going to have enough answers here because he can't build multiple units to address the units that Torjid is building here from either the 1 base or the airport to help defend this area. So we can see it starts out here with an artillery, a tank, and a battlecopter. Obviously, you're going to need to have answers for all of those. The mech can help deal with the artillery. Something like an anti-air can help deal with the battlecopter, and obviously a tank can help deal with your opponent's tank, but you can't build all those units at once. And what does Days of Plague have in the area? It has a couple of mechs to deal with the artillery, it has a tank to deal with the tank, it's going to need an anti-air here, but Torjid is going to make this attack even stronger. We see on this next turn, he builds another tank, another battlecopter, and brings in this tank from the right side to again threaten this city. To again threaten this base, and on the previous turn, Days of Plague didn't really respond. He didn't build an anti-air, which I think is pretty much a needed unit at this point to help deal with the battlecopters. He just built another mech, which is not going to be enough of a defense. And we see Tordred go even further here with his attack. Now we see the anti-air come out, but it's going to be too little too late. This tank can already get a pretty good hit on it. Yes, there's a mech and tank in the region, but you really don't care. You're going to be bringing in more tanks of your own, so it's a decent engagement to go for. We see that Tordred doesn't even necessarily have to go for it, just helps surround this area more to help take a good chunk out of the mech that was protecting the anti-air and attacks on the infantry in the area. And we see this final kind of attack really coming to light here. We see 2 battlecopters, 3 tanks, and artillery coming in, and now this central base is going to fall. AWBW doesn't even really try to defend it that much. It just gets a few good engagements here and builds an infantry on that city. And we do see here now that the 1 base is going to fall. And on the opposite side of the map, Tordred is doing an excellent job defending his own 1 base. We see 3 mechs here helping to defend against some of the artillery, and a Neo tank buy. That was a result of the function of this base not getting attacked earlier. It allowed Tordred to tech up. And now this similar attack that AWBW is going for with 2 artilleries, a battlecopter, an anti-air, some of these triangle units that like we were talking about, is not going to have the same gumption because it's going to have a much harder time trying to get through a Neo tank. So this ultimately leads to Tordred winning all of the properties and flipping this base here in the south, leading to a 4 base versus 2 base engagement, and AWBW having to turtle up here more in the right, central top right of the map, and ultimately Tordred goes ahead and wins this game. So that's example number 1, using triangle units like battlecopters, like tanks, like artillery, like anti-air, kind of the meat and potatoes of your army, to put on too much pressure onto a single base, or in this case a weak central 1 base and a mixed base map of your opponent to ultimately win that base. But that's not the only time you can build units that require answers. We're going to go to now another example from the APC2, and this is actually the APC2 Grand Finals, which I actually co-commentated on Himida's channel, so go check that one out as well. And we're going to be looking at this matchup here between the big fella and Hongjun Jifu, always the most impossible name to say, which is actually, we learned, Chloe Box versus Sonya Superior, 2 killers in the Advanced Wars by Web community that we all know and love. And the unit that we're going to be focusing here on is the Bomber by Chloe. And if we look at this board state position, we can see that Chloe is going for really a large attack here on the center of the map. Normally on this map you see either a lot of pressure on the 1 base and we try to go for a flip like we would see on Misery, or you're going to see some engagements here by the comm tower. A lot of different ideas. You don't really ever see a HQ rush, and normally you don't really see a lot of pressure here on the center just because there's not a lot of properties here. But Chloe gives us a good example of how strong it can be by building this bomber. Sonya the Superior, I'm just going to call him Sonya the Superior, not use the fake names they have for APC2. Sonya the Superior really doesn't have a lot of great answers. Number 1, he doesn't have enough money to build a fighter, which would be the natural response here, so he's going to have to defend with anti-air. But if he builds anti-air here really anywhere on the map, it's not going to be enough. He's going to have to build 1 anti-air here because obviously the 1 base is what's being put under the most pressure. We have 4 tanks, a bunch of city flips, a battlecopter coming in, and now if a bomber comes in, the bomber can win the engagement with only 1 anti-air present. It can take it out, and then obviously threaten and flip this base. So you're going to have to see another another anti-air built here by Sonya the Superior. But as soon as that second anti-air is built, Chloe Box can just send the bomber to the center and then down to the south to protect her own 1 base. When I was watching this live, I was absolutely shocked by how how little pressure was really put on Chloe's 1 base down here, because she only built infantry, and she got away with it because Sonya the Superior did put 1 artillery in there and was getting some good flips and engagements here, but really never put enough pressure to attack this 1 base. And now with the bomber coming out, we're not going to see that pressure. So we do see some more good engagements here by Sonya the Superior, but it's still not enough to attack the 1 base. We do see an anti-air come out to defend the 1 base even further from some of the battlecopters that Sonya the Superior is now bringing in. But take a look at 2 very important units here, the bomber and Sonya the Superior's medium tank. This is a very powerful punchy unit that Sonya the Superior would love to get in to attack some of these tanks, because now it was built originally to defend this base, but now that an attack's merely not going on as much in this base, we've seen Chloe go towards more to the center here, down to the south. It would love to get into the fight and attack these tanks, but it's being absolutely outranged by this bomber. And again, there's no good answer here by Sonya the Superior. There's no fighter to come in and help deal with it. He's still too poor to afford that to help build that. So he's going to have to build anti-air somewhere else and try to get this medium tank forward positioning, to get some better forward positioning. And go ahead and look as I get through these turns. Again, the medium tank and this bomber, how they ultimately move. We see the medium tank on this turn stays still, goes absolutely nowhere. The bomber is now completely centralized. It can go literally anywhere on the map. It can go in towards this one base. It can come down to the south to protect her own one base. And it can go to the north to attack the Superior's one base as well. It has complete central positioning. It's like a queen in chess that has no other units in front of it. It can just pick off pawns wherever it wants, like a queen in the end game. And this medium tank is the saddest medium tank I've ever seen in my entire life. It's moved a total of like 4 squares in the past 5 turns that's been alive. It's literally gone nowhere and done nothing because it's being completely outranged by this bomber. And we're just going to fly through the turns here, but we can see that this bomber is just allowing Chloe Box to get all this advanced positioning, get a 1k unit, a 1k income lead, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be a lot when you have kind of a stall state game like this. That kind of, doesn't really go anywhere, doesn't have any big attacks. But we see it getting a lot of forward positioning. She has complete control here. And then, yeah, I mean, Sunny Spirit really has nothing he can do here. He's forced to be incredibly defensive. This base is now under massive threat from the bomber, the Neo Tank, and some of the other units in this area, and her own one base really has no challenges going up against it. And ultimately, Chloe Box does go ahead and win this game. So this is the example number 2 of building units that your opponent has to respond to. This is the tech up example. Sun Superior really wasn't able to respond to this bomber. He tried to build multiple different anti-air. We see 3 on the field here to try to deal with it. It really wasn't enough. I'm going to allow the bomber to get infinite or amazing positioning on the map here, allowing Chloe to get center control and ultimately win this game. And we can see that Chloe did not fall into the same pit trap by Sunny Superior. Sunny Superior also built a bomber, but because some of the income advantage that we were talking about earlier, and because she knew she had to respond to it, she went ahead and built a fighter immediately. And ultimately, we see here on these next couple of turns, that fighter does go ahead and ultimately pick off the bomber by Sunny Superior. So, sorry, I wasn't there on this turn, but on this turn, we see the fighter come in and kill the bomber as well, while this bomber still stands for Chloe. So just another very impactful turn and another way that you can get an advantage of your opponents by building units that they have to respond to. Example number 3 of units that your opponent has to respond to, your opening units. Oftentimes when people get to the opening, they just build the same units, infantry engagements, go out there, capture some cities, whatever, and then build an artillery or build a tank or whatever. Try to get to an area that they want to attack to, often the weak side of your opponent. Go on, so forth, like any other game that we've played on Advanced Wars by Web. But sometimes you can mix it up in your openings. Build units that your opponent is not expecting, and how we see that in standard play is building a recon. Recons are not really units that you're normally going to see a lot in standard play. They're obviously much better in Fog, as that's their main function, to provide some vision in Fog of War. But they can have a lot of very impactful uses against infantry and against captures in standard play, and we see that here in this game between Jaytaquin and Rice Muncher on the map Looming Threat. And the idea of this recon here is going to be to threaten the artillery. We have what's called the artillery problem on this map, where this artillery is going to be attacking the pre-built artillery on the shoals here to make sure that these 2 flips go through and that artillery ultimately dies. So this artillery now is in a bit of a quandrum. Which thing do you attack here? Do you attack the infantry on the airport? Do you attack the infantry on the infantry flipping your city? Or do you attack Artie and just get some good value and let those captures go through? Well, Jaytaquin is going to make that problem a little bit better for himself. He's going to bring this recon into range here, and now this recon, if the artillery, Rice Muncher's artillery goes for the attack on Jaytaquin's artillery, it's now going to take a heavy hit from the recon, and then ultimately not going to be able to have a long-term good engagement against it. So this recon is already being incredibly annoying. Additionally, it's threatening this city infantry after it captures. Sorry, this is what am I talking about? This Rice Muncher infantry after it captured the city, but that's not really a real threat because we have some tank coverage here. So that's lesser of the point of this recon. The bigger point is to put this artillery out of position, and if it does attack, get a nice hit on it. So we do see here that Rice Muncher does in fact back up. This artillery does not actually go for or finish the flip because this infantry was weakened, and this artillery wasn't able to be attacked because of the recon in the area. And we can already start a clock now for the value that Jaytaquin is getting out of this recon. He stopped the flip while being able to, he's actually not going for the flip of his own, he's doing the other strategy that you'll see on this map, which is just ignoring the artillery problem in general and just getting some good infantry captures here, which is equally viable, right? He's winning these 3 contested cities here in the south, and is going to be winning it on the north as well. So 6 of the most contested properties on this map in the early game are all going to go to Jaytaquin, just with the pressure built from this recon. So we do go ahead and see that on these upcoming turns. The recon is now becoming even more of a nuisance. Another day here where the city's not being flipped. That's another 1k, 2k building up for J-Talk in terms of funds saved. Not to mention funds denied, but just funds saved, right? If it happens for 2 or more days that this city does not get flipped, this recon's going to completely earn itself in. And already it's forcing another unfortunate thing that Rice Venture does not want to do here, which is either build a tank or a battlecopter from this one base side, because this recon can attack everything that's in this area, including the artillery. It's going to be very annoying. And although those units are going to be good units for Rice Venture to build regardless, you don't necessarily want to be building them from this base. This is kind of a part of the map, generally on Looming Threat, which is not really important, I would say, is not a high value area. You generally want to be building more of your units from the 2-base side to really apply pressure, from Rice Venture, building units from the 2-base side to apply pressure to this one base and try to flip it. That's generally how we see most games go on this map. So forcing a tank or a battlecopter build here from a 1 base that again is not as important is very strong here by J-Talkwin. And we do go ahead and see that tank built here. But we keep on going here, and this recon is still getting more and more value. It's another day here where the city is not getting flipped by Rice Muncher. Now we do finally see the city getting flipped, but the artillery can still get one more attack on it, delaying it for another turn. And the final little just small benefit here of this recon, it's earned its 4k in here. It's been 4 days. It's completely earned itself in. It's forced a tank where probably Rice Venture did not want to build one. And the final little twist of the dagger, turn of the knife here, is J-Talkwin is able to attack the artillery, getting 3 damage off it. And obviously the recon's going to die in the process here. But that is how you are able to use unexpected units like recons in the opening, even on standard maps, to get a large advantage over your opponent by making them uncomfortable, making them have to deal with something that they don't want to deal with, and respond to that in the opening of the games. With all that being said, that is all of our tips here today for getting better at Advanced Wars by Web. 5 tactics to help improve your games. Going over them again, guys, we have wasting units time, sacrificing for powers, using off-meta powers or powers that your opponent may not be expecting, using pivot points to front shift effectively and win contested properties, and then finally building units that your opponent has to respond to in a variety of the 3 ways that we just shown. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching, everyone. My name is MansaMusa, and remember, when the glasses come on, the tactics come out. Bye, guys.